Welcome guys, welcome to Echoes from the Wild. Shark here. As you know, I'm an anti-poaching ranger. I've worked all over South Africa and my podcast is about anti-poaching and wildlife conservation. Join us for the Guardian Fit virtual half marathon running the 30th of August to the 30th of November to support our brave anti-poaching rangers. This event is more than just a run. It's a movement to raise funds for essential boots and uniforms, empowering rangers to protect endangered wildlife on the front lines. Whether you're running, walking, or jogging, your participation will help ensure these guardians have the gear they need to carry out their critical mission. Let's unite in fitness and purpose. Together, we can make a difference. You can find the link to all my sports essay below in the description. Tickets are 180 Rand per person. Today, I have with me Divan. Just saying, I don't know
Grobler.
if you're going to add that. Divan, if you want to.
Yeah, Grobler.
Cool.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you very much for being my second.
Lekker, I'm very honored. Thank you for having me here. I'm looking forward to this discussion today.
Me too.
It's always good to have some bush stories around the campfire and you listen
Yep.
to people's stories.
Yep.
And I think it's an awesome thing you're doing here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. One thing I'm looking forward to is to talk about everything that you've done, all your accomplishments, and your future endeavors. I know you're working with something big, but we'll get to that a little bit later. We also have Z with us today. He's one of my colleagues. Also has extensive background in wildlife conservation. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Just on that note, I've actually wanted to work with you for a while.
Yeah, it's likewise.
We met on Instagram.
Yeah.
We got into each other's DMs.
Slid into each other's DMs.
Yeah.
And
The conversation talks.
The conservation. Yeah, exactly. Let's make it.
And now we're sitting here in the middle of the tongue.
There we go.
Exactly, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Profanity is found.
Anyways, yeah. So let's get to it. So first question, where did it all start for you? What was the turning point for you? What clicked in your mind that made you decide conservation?
Now I'll go. It's a long story, but I'll try and just brief it. And my life changed when I was impacted by 4 lion cubs.
Okay.
And before that, I went into sports, but my head was never in the right moment of discipline.
Yep.
I was kind of like a rebel, tried to fit in here, there, tried a few things, tried like corporate sales. I did those Kirby's, and you go to the door, won the icebreaker deal, selling a Kirby for 20,000. It was a life experience.
Yeah.
Growing up, and at that point, I didn't know where I was going in my life. Thinking that rugby was going to be my career going into the future, and also not having that strong, disciplined mind, I knew at the point, and looking back now, I will never make it with that mind frame.
Yeah.
And as you go through the journey, it's like over a decade now from there into where I am today, sitting around this table with you fine gents in conservation and really learning what is real in life.
Yeah.
And that's the true value I gained through this whole experience. So going back to that stage when I was going in and out of where am I going in life?
Yeah.
I came to a realization to get my discipline and act, and I started training hard and went into rugby again and got successful with where people started paying me to do what I loved.
Oh, wow.
And it was a physical contact sport, and I trained myself, disciplined myself, and got myself physically strong there again. But yet, you try in your mind to do it so fast, but you can do anything actually with your body if you really focus on it.
Yeah.
So I pulled my hamstring on a captain's run a day before the rugby would start, and I would start earning a salary. And I was bum and bleak because now all of a sudden I'm out of the game.
Yeah.
I was hot patching this, cold patching this, trying to get this stretching, trying to work it I was still fit, but this was pulling me back. My hamstring was just pulling me back. And I hit an all-time low because I had no support really. Family is there and they can give you a certain type of support, but deep down inside you got to dig really deep because now you're realizing, what am I going to do? I'm turning 24.
Yeah.
I'm losing in this battle now.
Yeah.
And somehow the universe is just actually guiding you, and you don't know it in that moment. And I remember I was trying to get so rehabilitated so fast, I ended up doing a stupid thing, and I went to another club.
Yep.
And I played for a lower team just to get the fitness and see how strong I am.
Yeah.
And in that match, I fought my front teeth were out.
Oh, wow.
I was laying face down on the grass. I remember this impact. I ran in for a tackle and I tackled into another guy's head on the top. It was such a hard impact. It opened up my whole eye,
Yeah.
and it felt like my teeth. Till this day, I have no feeling on my teeth here on the left side. And I was lying, and I didn't have a gum guard, so I put my finger in my mouth to feel if I still got my teeth, because I can't feel anything in my face.
Yeah.
And this led me down to like they fucking bandaged me up and told me you have to go to the hospital, no medical aid, nothing. So I
Yep.
had no cash. I was like broke. I drove myself to the hospital, went through a whole ordeal that I had internal bleeding. I like puked blood all over the hospital floor, the entrance,
Yeah.
because I got there at that point and I was just like out of it. And they all rushed and put me in a wheelchair, X-rays and stuff, and I've also cracked the cheekbone.
Yep.
In that moment.
It's your orbital bone,
Yeah, so I think that runs here. I've had that. Well, not
that's
that,
what I'm
but
asking you. 'Cause I think
I fractured it all.
Yeah. So till today, I got this effect where I've got this numbness here on the left side of the face. But in that moment in my life, I remember I woke up when I pushed this thing up my nose. I passed out from pain, and I woke up in the middle of the night, in the middle of like this reception area with people with stab wounds. It was very like government level. So I wake up and I see all these doctors around me, but they're foreign doctors, and they're looking at my file and they're explaining, and I'm sitting there looking at them, and I feel my eye, and I feel the stitches there above the eye, and I'm like, okay, I'm sorted. So I get up, I feel my pockets, and I have my keys and pockets, and obviously in my pockets, the keys and my car keys, everything is still there. So I walk out the hospital, climb into the car, and I drive home. I don't know, I had blackouts in between there. I don't know how I got home. What I remember the next day is people came from the neighbors to the house and woke me up and said, "Are you okay?" And they saw my face and they're like, "Oh," their first take, and it was standing like a balloon, like blue. And they said, "You left everything open. The car was open, the keys inside, the front door was open." I didn't even realize this. And that from that point, it was very low for me. It felt like everything was just ripped away. Like you don't know where to now. It's now dead end. Like you are rock bottom now. Yeah. And I was lying on the floor and I felt so like I don't know what's my purpose. And that's in my journey how I found God within this journey. And then it led to conservation. Yeah. And I had this voice in me saying, "Stand up, get in the car and drive." And I was lying there, and at that moment I was like, "God, what is your purpose for me? I really need to know now what's your purpose." And I had this feeling like, get in your car now, drive. And I'm getting up and I grab the keys, and you're just going with this feeling. It's like something's overwhelmingly talking to me. And I get in a car and I turn the ignition on, and it's on empty. There's like no fuel. I got like zero cash in the bank. I'm like, where am I going? And something just says, "Trust me. I'm above this. Fuel is not even on where I am. It doesn't need. Just trust me." I start the car and I start driving out the gate. Get to the first robot. Something says, "Go right." And then as you go right, is on this road in Moffat on Main in Port Elizabeth. It's a long stretch road. There's a lot of robots. And as I'm driving down this road, going, where am I going? What's going on? Like you realize now,
you're about to run out of fuel.
Yeah, and I'm listening to a voice here, like a feeling. Yeah. And I'm just going, and all of a sudden, as I'm thinking that, looking at this long stretch road, this image pops in my mind exactly where I need to go. And it's this temple on top of a hill with it's an old World War II bunker for looking out for navy ships and in World War II, etc. But it looks like a Mayan temple. It's on Skoemakerskorp if you go there. It's like a beautiful, it's very cool. So I drive, it's quite a bit to get there. So I drive there, I get there about probably 15 minutes later. I stop there, so you got this long staircase walking up, and it's like full of sand and shrubs, and nobody goes there. So I get to the top, and there's this building, and it's inside. I walk in, and it's all these Bible verses on the wall, and it says, "God loves you." Yeah. And I'm like, I've got this overwhelming feeling of love. Yeah. Like it just, like everything, all my worries just fade away. Yeah. And as a kid, I remember how befucked I was with lions. Yeah. I used to draw endless pictures of lions. That was my escape from reality and my sense of growing up. And nobody's perfect. Yes. We all got our struggles. And in that moment, for my escape was always drawing lions or just watching videos of lions. And in that moment, standing there, I just had a feeling I have to go look for the lions. Yeah. And it's just beaming across me. Like I can feel like a kid again. I got this fire ignited in me. Like I feel excited. Like, wow, that's cool. Yeah. And I get back into the car and I drive. And something tells me go down this road. And I'm going 30 k's out with no fuel. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And I drive out, and all of a sudden I see this board that says Lion Park.
Yeah.
And an arrow, and I'm like, hey, that's a sign. That's got to be a
Literally.
sign.
That's literally a
I'm
sign.
looking for lions. I'm looking for a sign.
You're looking for a
Driving.
sign, and there's a sign.
And I'm trusting this feeling. Like
Yeah.
and I get to this gate, and I walk out, and the gate guard looks at me, and I'm like, can I talk to the manager or the owner? And like, for what? And I'm like, I just want to come and help out here. And they're like, okay, hold on. Call the manager. 10 minutes later, this big guy,
Yeah.
comes with this old fucking his motorbike. He's much bigger than it. From a distance, I see him over this big tree.
Yeah.
And I know just over those big trees are the lions and stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm very naive. I don't know anything. And still today, I don't know anything. Like, it's so much to learn every day about
Yeah,
conservation.
That's very
correct.
true.
We're always learning.
Yeah.
Every
and
single day.
That's a beautiful thing. And it makes you so humble on this journey.
Yeah.
And this guy rocked up at the gate, and he was like, can I help you? I'm like, yeah, listen, I play rugby. I want to come help out. So, Afrikaans guy, you got to get your strategic intercourse. He likes rugby. I can see it.
Yeah.
And when I said rugby, his eyes lit up because he was thinking of all the good weekends he had. And that's how I got his attention. He's like, okay, give me your number and stuff, and you can come and volunteer. And I'm like, what's volunteering? Being very naive.
Yeah.
And he says, hey, you got to come work here. You can work here for free, and you can work with the lions and stuff, but we're not going to pay you. I'm like, I'm cool with that. He's like, you're going to work hard. I'm like, I'm down for that. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I need to be here. He's like, okay, cool. So the next day, it's my birthday,
Oh, yeah.
and I got nobody. I'm alone, and I get a phone call, and he says, come, we need your help. And I go that way again. I got like nothing. Like, I'm literally, I think that was my last stop right there for fuel. Like, I don't know how that light was on, and I was driving the day before,
Yeah.
all over, and I'm still going there. And as I rocked up there, they gave me these 4 lions. They said, these 4 lions you need to look after. Here's how we do this. We're going to show you. And they showed me how to do the feeding, to do all the feeding and all that. And my birthday, I spent with 4 lions. And
That
those
is
lions changed
incredible.
my life. And it was like a whole...
Well, you changed their life, I'm guessing, because they needed help.
So yeah, the story gets very dark from there.
Okay.
But it's still what we're fighting for, and that's what we're all here for.
Yeah.
We're fighting the darkness. That's what we realize. We are light beamers, and we're trying to protect the lost, beautiful creation.
Sure. Yeah.
That's incredible.
You're 100% right there. I mean, the world is a very dark place. Not just against, from our side with poaching, not just against poachers, but the daily, grind, going out into the field, possibility of encountering a hippo, being killed by an elephant. We all know, we all witnessed, not witnessed, but heard of and experienced. So every day it's dark for us, but like you said, we are a light. I mean that's an amazing start for you. I'm sure. I can see it in your face that it's it's.
No, I mean,
isn't your birthday coming up?
No, it's already passed.
Oh, is it already passed? Okay.
Yeah.
I heard somewhere along the line it was your birthday coming up. I'm not too sure.
No, it's passed.
Okay.
And yours?
Right, 8th of March.
8th of March.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
When's yours?
8th of July.
Oh, okay.
8th of September.
Really? Dude, this is destined.
The 8th club.
How's
In the
that?
middle of
The 8th
nowhere.
club.
Eight
All
is-
the eights
Eight
around
is important.
infinity.
Yeah.
It is important,
The 8th club.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I dig that.
That's very cool. Yeah. Very, very cool.
So tell me more. I mean, I know you said it gets dark from there. Are you willing to elaborate on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, we can, there's so much to talk about it. We can go for hours on,
Yeah.
Specifically, there's so many dark moments in what we can go into. But I can go into certain categories, and if people want to ask for more.
Yeah. So regarding the cubs that you were handed on your birthday to just look after, what was the outcome of that? How long did you look after them for? Where are they now? Do you know?
So unfortunately, they passed away. It's more than a decade ago. The captive lions can go up to 18 years, but the fate that where they were was in the can hunting industry, unbeknown to my knowledge at the time, and being naive. You put in all the hard work and dedication, and you love what you're doing because you go there every day, and that's how I paid my rent. I didn't talk about the lions, just the facts. I started speaking about their stories, who they are, personality. because they've had a different personality and character, and so
Yeah.
I had a whole audience of people from all over the world that are interacted with in the plight of conservation and lions, and what I was under my knowledge under that premise is where I was
Yeah.
thinking this is where we're going, you know.
Yeah.
We're doing this to rehabilitate lions back into the wild, but
Yeah.
at that point, staying there for that time, you start to realize I haven't seen these lions really going into any wild places. I haven't heard of it. I haven't
Yeah.
seen a video. Why? So I started asking these questions. Like,
Yeah.
you just sold these 4 lions. Can I come and look where they released? Can
Yeah.
I just come along? They're like, no, just stay. We need you here. We stick around. You know, all these sub stories. So, in the long run, like that's interacting with the people like that.
Yeah.
I made amends to survive. Like people would come and give me money without even asking.
Yeah.
Like the amount I needed the next day for the rent, like
Yeah.
full,
Wow.
given to me, and I
Yeah.
always had food, and I was looked after. Even I worked for free.
Yeah.
Life just worked.
Yes.
I was engulfed in this passion and loving what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was thinking I was doing good. So as time went on, I was there for about 8 months on this project,
Yeah.
all volunteering. That I started seeing things that didn't match up.
Yes.
And that's how I started following the puzzle. And I found out that they were selling the lions to hunters. I went into the office one day and I looked at names and I saw the names there. So
Yep.
researched them and I saw that they were doing hunting of lions.
Yep.
So I was like, wait a second, this is, Then Carte Blanche rocked up there and they wanted to talk about can hunting. And the
I
owner
remember this.
So the owner came to me and he's like, you're not allowed to speak to Carte Blanche at the gate, just tell him nothing. I said, why? What do you got to hide? And he looks at me like this, like he was a banker. Anger, like he's like,
Yeah.
it's nothing to do with you. Leave it. Don't talk to them. And he walks away, scuttles. And I'm like, red flags, question mark,
Yeah.
just like as he walks away, and it just pops up all these windows. And I'm like, yeah. And that's where the reality sank in really like deep. And I started to rebel against this place. I started to go to the volunteers and I said, this place is not what it is. And I lost friends, I lost people. The owners came to me and said to leave.
Yeah.
Because I was rebelling against them, because what they were doing was wrong. And as that you follow that breadcrumb, you just start to investigate, and so much more comes up. And you realize all these tigers, all these lions, they're just breeding with them. There's cubs, and then they're just making money out of the tourists and the volunteers, where the volunteers were paying like 20,000 a week just to be there. And some of them stayed for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Ridiculous. And there was like 30 volunteers. When I started, there was nobody because they needed help. But then these 30 volunteers came in, and people and interactions, and I could see the stress on these lions. And I remember one particular day we're doing cub pitching, and I didn't like this. I started hating it.
Yeah.
But I was here for the lions because now I invested into this animal.
Yes.
And you want to see what is the outcome, what's going to happen. Because now in that mix, before the owners told me to leave, the lions going in investigations and seeing, one moment where this kid walked in, and the one lion, he was 3 months old. It's quite a bigger lion for 3 months old, and they're strong. And in the Jagger, he was one side, and he wasn't happy. I could see he wasn't happy. So I left him alone, and I said, let's go to the Adi's brother.
Yeah.
Forgot his name now, bless him. I didn't work long with these two cubs. And I remember the Jagger because he always walked into the electric fence. He was kind of silly. And his brother always just looked at him like, idiot. And he will fight to the fence. But yeah, Jagger was just not having it. And it will probably pop to my mind now, his brother's name. And I said, okay, he's lovable. This lion is cool. He doesn't care. He loves the attention. So I brought in the kids to go pet him, but it's like quick, and most of the kids are scared. But if you can really engage with someone to touch an animal, it'll change their lives.
Yes.
It's a lion. It's beautiful. So if they can have a beautiful experience, great. So this kid walks in, he's petrified. His mom is pushing him to touch his lion. It's from her. She wants this now.
Yeah.
But the kid doesn't want it. I can see it. So I'm looking at him, and in a corner of my peripheral vision, I see Jagger arming to get this kid because this kid is quivering. Natural instinct is kicking in.
Yeah.
And as I wanted about to stand up and guide him out, because I can see this is not going to happen, I see Jagger fucking flying for this kid.
Shit.
And I put my arm out and I stop him, and this lion thinks my arm is this kid. And he grabs down, but I've never felt the force of a 3-month-old cub like grabbing down.
Yeah.
The more I tried to get out, the more he like clinched, like a clamp on me. And I was like, whoa, it's powerful. But the blood was going everywhere, and I was just like relaxed. And now the kid is screaming frantically and going crazy. And I'm like, can you get out, please?
Yeah.
And they go out and everybody's taking pictures. And I said, everybody just relax, relax. And everybody's going commotion. And I'm relaxed. As I'm relaxing, I can feel this lion's grip is releasing slowly and more and more. And he's realizing, oh, wait the fuck. And as I could feel that at the moment he's released, I ripped out. And he was like, what? I had this dumbfound feeling like, what happened? And he just went on to his brother and he laid by him. And I jumped over the wall, like bleeding all over my arm.
Yeah.
Got into the restaurant. Everybody's eating their burgers and chips. And I'm walking in there. I'm like, and I'm like, bandage. They come, get in the back and bandage up. Anyway, so as time progressed, the owners came to me and they said to me, you know, you need to leave because you are rebelling against us and you're saying all these negative things. And I said, well, it's the truth, you know, it's the truth. What you're doing here is wrong. You're falsing everybody's beliefs in what you're doing here, trying to get good people's money and people to support you, and all you're doing is making more money on selling these lions for hunting, and nobody knows that.
Yeah.
And they looked at me and they said, it's nothing, none of your business. And they walked away. They said, we want you out of here. And I looked at them as they walked away and I said, fine. So I got up and I walked to those 4 lions. They were beautiful, you know, were almost a year old. They were big lions,
Yeah.
you know, getting that fluffiness.
Yeah.
And I hugged all of them and I fucking cried my eyes out and I said, I'll make a way to get you out of here. Somehow I'll find a way.
Yeah.
And that's how the journey started for me to just take a bag and I'll end up in the most awesomest places in Africa or in South Africa, meeting amazing people and also seeing more of the dark side as you're uncovering can hunting in South Africa. I was part of Blood Lions.
Yep.
I went into undercover with Blood Lions to expose more of the can hunting issues. Followed lions all over Southern Africa.
That's amazing.
Like I was in part of a project in Damara land in Torsha.
Yeah.
Torsha is huge, and Damara land, it's like, you know, it's so vast and you get lost there looking for lions, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. But also seeing the dark side there of the human wildlife conflict and, you know, communities impacting on wildlife and also people profiting off that. And then you go into Kruger and then you see more of that, because now if you look at Bushbuck Ridge, and that's one of the poorest communities in South Africa.
Yes.
With over 500,000 in the population.
Yeah.
And if you can think it's one of the poorest communities, half of those people should probably not have jobs. So it's 250,000 people sitting there with nothing, right next to the border of the Kruger National Park.
Yep.
So bushmeat poaching has just gone wild.
Yes.
Across that section. I mean, if you drive into the Kruger now, the first 30 minutes, you don't see anything.
Yeah.
It's not even a bird.
Yeah.
And then you'll start seeing game as the further you go in. But, you know, I went with an ex-poacher into the Kruger. We snuck through boundaries to go take out snares just because I was curious at the time. And the amount of snares we will find 70 kilometers away from that area.
Yep.
It's frightening. And then you go, damn, this is huge.
Yep.
And I went with this poacher into the markets. I went and spoke to everybody, the poachers. There's one section where this guy opened the door, this like, you know, 10 seniors. He was just like picking his nose out. He was like, what do you want? And this guy is talking to that guy. I'm standing there with a camera. And this guy takes out a machete. He's like, yeah, siga, mlungu, siga. And he turns around. He says, this guy's going to stab you now if you don't get out of here. To my knowledge at that time, this guy was holding rhino horn in his house.
Jesus.
They caught him out later because that guy told me, and I still got a connection with him.
Yep.
So he turned around and he was part of the Impimpi group that got those poachers. But, you know, that's how far I went into that area of Bushbuck Ridge. Like I went into the midst and I saw some of the other poachers just getting nyama, just normal nyama.
Yeah.
And if you can take 10,000 people, let's say 10,000 people poach, out of 250,000 people have no jobs.
Just quickly, to stop you there, but nyama, obviously, for anybody listening that doesn't know, is meat.
So the bush meat was going, okay, let's say 250,000 people, 10,000 people poach for a living. They need to support their families to make, and then they realize how much money they make. So these oaks would go out and set 50, 60 snares around an area where they know that the impalas are sleeping at night. So once it's triggered, all of them scatter and they get a fright and they catch like 20 at a time, he said. And they cut all that up, and how I went more into it is like how fraudulent the government in that situation was, because they were also involved, the police.
Yes.
And how they would go with the vans and collect his meat from the Kruger and then go sell it. to the
and
community.
still are. I mean, I know in Hoedspruit, where I was in Hoedspruit, there was a guy who was, what's that famous hippo called?
Oh, yes. Yes, the one that walks around.
Recently had a calf, actually. Anyways, but you know what I'm talking about, so I'll get to the name. So that specific reserve, a guy was doing meat poaching next door, on the next door property, and selling it on the reserve that he worked at. Right under everyone's noses.
Yeah. It's that's just part of the darkness that's there, and how it's just being annihilated and taken out, and there's going to be nothing left. So let's go back to the numbers. You know, if you do it in math, 10,000 poachers every month taking out 40 plus animals. You know, it's every month. Then you put all of that together in a decade, 20, 30, 40 decades from now, as the human population is increasing. This is putting stress on the most precious jewel in Africa.
Correct.
And that's why this is such a good vibe to be in, because you're educating, you're learning, you're getting more people on board, and you become a close knitted group of like-minded people to protect the lost jewel.
And I think
I just want to make a note about why we're so passionate and why we get so emotional and angry about meat poaching. I understand a lot of people, including myself, sometimes have the argument. Sometimes people have nothing to eat and they've got no choice. The problem that I have, and the problem why I get upset, is the means of how it's done. Unfortunately, these snares that are set up and these traps that are set up cause the animal hours and hours and sometimes days before the poacher comes back to catch his nyama. This animal is tortured, bleeds out slowly sometimes, and sometimes is tortured for hours before the bleeding even starts or before it's choked to death, especially with how the snares work, and some of the traps. So that is one of the reasons when it comes to meat poaching that we get incredibly emotional and incredibly upset.
Exactly, and I think it's important. You know, we talk a lot about the darkness, which there is, but you know, it's understanding, as you said, that different places will have different reasons behind why they might be meat poaching. You know, it could be a survival thing. It could be in some places they're literally using that meat to fund to feed or sustain rhino poachers when they're heading into Kruger or wherever it is.
Not just that fund. I mean, there's a terrorist organization in Africa,
100%.
in Central Africa, that's funded purely by poaching.
Well, like exactly. I don't want to make, but there is, they talk about certain organizations that use it to. I mean, this funds human trafficking, drug trafficking, arms trafficking, funds their other agendas. So that's the thing, is that I think that's also important about discussing it, is understanding that having to find models that work in every area it can be difficult all over Africa, because the reasons may be different, and trying to implement these different models. But you're right. I mean, if you look at gin traps, snares, hunting dogs, machetes, that kind of stuff. It's as you said, it's the way it's done. But working with communities is so important to try and educate and change perceptions.
Before we move on, I know you've got a question for Divan. I just want to mention, you mentioned now about hunting dogs, where dogs that poachers use. Another sad reality behind that, and that's something that frustrates me personally, and I'm sure a lot of other people, is that a lot of reserves have an SOP that if you encounter a poaching dog, or dog that's being used to help poachers, it's shoot on sight.
The difficulty is, I think, and this is where it's, I think, for people to understand, though, that is, if there's one, but usually there's more than one. There's more, and the thing is, what do you do with these dogs? They carry diseases.
They've already got the taste for blood now of game. And
we don't have the logistics to be able to take these dogs in, try and rehabilitate or look after them or whatever it is. So unfortunately, like you said, that's what happens. Is the only way to deal with it
is shoot on sight, and unfortunately, that has a negative. Our job is already dark.
Well, it's the same as it's the same as dealing with a poacher.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it personally where you can anger a community.
Yeah.
Because that's somebody's brother, father, son, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know. So how, working with communities, but also dealing with the issue.
Yeah.
It's a very, very difficult, tricky thing to do. And but how do you deal with this?
Yeah.
And how do you find there isn't a common way to deal with this, because each country has its own different way of dealing with it.
Correct.
They have own reasons behind it, own way of dealing with it. And that's where I think hopefully these sort of podcasts, talking to people such as Divan and other people, is we get to talk about these things and just shine some light on it. So while we talk a lot about the darkness, I think that's very important, because we're enlightening exactly, and that motivates people. Hopefully it motivated you, I'm sure. I think you,
definitely me.
To go out and do something, do more. And these are so important, because a lot of people are they want the problem solved.
Yeah.
But as we said, we're all learning.
Yeah.
And we need to be educated. If we're going to pour money into something,
we
need to know, what is that something? Are we actually putting it into something that's working?
Correct.
Or is we just putting it into something that, like I often talk about washing penguins.
Yeah.
Sometimes things make us feel good.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily the solution.
Yes.
And so having these conversations is so important.
Well, I just want to, I know we stuck on this, but it's so interesting, because I know your mindset, your goal, your plan, I think is absolutely incredible. In the brief discussion that we've had, where I love the fact that you want to help. There's so many organizations in our industry who as of recently, I've been reaching out to them, saying this, I'm doing this, and it's either no reply, left unseen, or just not interested. And I've in the private security industry, I've seen it, and now in wildlife conservation, I see everyone's kind of sticking to their own. I understand from a security point of view, it's difficult to trust people. I understand, from the point, I'm a nobody. I haven't made a name for myself yet. But at the same time, don't just ignore someone. You're actually trying to make a difference. You're actually trying to help people. You're trying to make a name for yourself, but you're also going out of your way. So when people come on board your company, I understand that you said you want to make them a director at the same time. So that when, like, I remember an old manager used to say to me, if I die tomorrow, are you guys just going to stop working? And that's exactly like you said. If something happens to you, the company, your dream, your goal is just going to continue.
Yeah, the life continues.
That legacy.
The legacy continues, and I love that. I love your thinking behind that.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. But just very quickly, but to touch on what you're saying, is that I think a lot of people either have good intentions, and as we were saying, good intentions don't always equal good results.
Correct.
Having people like Divan that's gone through even the dark, all of that kind of stuff, it's obviously it's informed his decision about creating the project that he has. And so it comes from a place of knowledge, education, whatever it is. There's a lot of organizations that are involved, like I said, they have good intentions, but they don't really know much about what goes on. You have others that might take advantage. What often happens is people find a niche. And in that niche, they're like, this is it, it's working for us, it's making the money, it's whatever, and they don't want to share that, or they don't want to, they want to keep going, as and that's sad, because there's organizations out there like yours that we want to find solutions, real solutions, and actually make sure that funding is going into that stuff, so that people can't say, but we've thrown millions of rand or dollars or whatever it is into this and it hasn't worked. Well, yes, because maybe we haven't put it in the right place. People that have, like yourself, that have been through all of this can actually enlighten people and help them make better decisions and get funding in the right places,
Yeah.
and that's what's going to make a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day,
100%,
you know.
So I know what is your question?
No, I'm happy to. I think I've said enough on that. So
Okay,
I'm happy
okay.
to. Yeah, I'm happy
Because
to.
I want to, while we on it, I know that you spent a bit of time in anti-poaching. Tell me more about that. You know, what was that like? Do you have any encounters? Do you have any stories?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think many people in this industry have many stories to tell, and I've got this one story of anti-poaching I'll go into. It was on a beautiful, beautiful place close to Swaziland, 8 biodiversities in the area. It was incredible. You know, South Africa has 9 biodiversities, and the sub, you know, biodiversities from there. But we've one of the richest southern hemisphere.
Yes.
With the most plant diversity
Yep.
in the world.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to know that we're in such a pristine area. But you know, going now to America's side with the Native Americans, I love their culture, and I wanted to be a Native American Indian guy, like crazy with the wild horses and living that life. It looks so peaceful and humble, and I loved it. There was so much love in the communities. In the movies I grew up, always so, you know, peace loving, and there was war, and they had their conflicts, but you know, it was a warrior life.
They gave back to earth. They gave back to Mother
Nature.
Nature.
And they they were in harmony with it.
Yeah.
And I've met some Native Americans on my journey. It was incredible stories that they've shared with me.
Yeah.
But this particular one, I was working on this reserve, and I was doing a bunch of things, and anti-poaching was one of it. But now I had 3 days off, and I decided to go into the urban jungle. Went back there to see what's the real jungle like.
Yeah.
Remind me that the other jungle is much better.
Yeah.
And as I'm walking in the mall, and you know, everything was just always to me like so bland. Like everything sells. Every shop looked the same, and I was just like, there's so many people, and such a big distraction actually.
Yeah.
And I heard this Native American flute in this mall in South Africa, and I was like, wait a second, what's that? So I followed this flute sound, and I came across this Native American Indian standing there with his flute, like playing beautiful music with his speakers, and there was a few people standing, and I was just standing from a distance admiring him because he had his whole entourage out. And as soon as everybody left, some people, he was selling CDs and stuff. I walked up to him and I said, have you ever seen lions in Africa? He's like, huh? Who's this guy? Like, he's like, no. And I'm like, can I give you my number? When you want to come see wild lions, I'll come pick you up and I'll take you and I'll show you some cool shit. And he was like, okay. And I said, my name's Divan. And he's like, my name's Utu. And I said, cool, I love your vibe and I love your music. So I gave my number to him, and about 2 weeks later, I had another off period, and he phoned me on that time, he messaged me on the time, hey brother, you still keen to pick me up to see lions? And he's got his lion faces emojis, and I'm like, yeah, cool. And I said, you send me your location, I'll come pick you up. So about 2 hour drive, I get to the location, there's Indian teepees at this place, like a farm just outside the city.
That's awesome.
I was like, oh, this is a dope place. And he comes walking up here, but now he's dressed all casual, and he's got his suitcases, and I'm like, what's all this stuff? And he's got his long black hair. You know, he was legit. So we're driving back, and I'm asking him questions. How did you decide to come to South Africa? And he says, no, his great-great-grandfather was Geronimo. And I was like, no way. So, you know, that's his story. I mean, and he says, no, he's from the Apache tribe, and you know, things have obviously changed as things progressed on, and all of that. And that's just another side of a story. And there, but I was excited to have this honor to have somebody from that lineage with me. And I'm going to show him lions. And I'm like, wow, this is so cool. So I arranged with the reserve manager at that time. She was in charge of the APU and the whole reserve and all of that. The beautiful lady, bless her soul, for carrying on. She was such a G.I. Joe in the bush, and she grew up military conservation. You know, you can go open any book and show her any picture, Latin name, and she'll say it like that. She was like, wow, she was on the ball, this old lady with blue eyes, grey hair. She always carried a revolver with her. She shot a poacher through the head one day. That revolver kept a bullet and made a necklace out of it.
Jesus.
So she was kind of she was special. She was like a mom. She was very good. Her guidance showed me and taught me a lot in life. Because I was about 2 years on the reserve, following lines and helping with APU and all of that. So going back to the Indian, E2. I know there's a lot of sensitivity around the subject of people I don't know what the right terminology to use. I mean, to me, it's Native American. Indians,
Yeah,
as we know it.
Most prefer either First Nations or Native American,
Yep.
Yeah, Native
as opposed
American,
to
So it's not really Indian. I mean,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Native American would be.
Portuguese got there and are like, oh, these are look like Indian. Not really.
Yeah.
We're native here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
that's
yeah.
exactly where it came from. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yes, I know most First Nations or
But at the end of the
Yeah,
day, I just
Native
see everybody as
American.
a human being.
yeah,
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just how we brought up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going through the reserve, and I arranged for everything. And he's like, brother, can you take me to a special place first before we go for lions? I'm thinking in my head, okay, I know this one place of a cave bushman painting, Khoisan
Yeah.
bushman painting, and it goes over, and there's a rock that goes over, and you can see about, let's say, 40% of the reserve, the rivers and the mountains, and it's beautiful. And the savannah in front of you. And if you're lucky, you can see elephants, lions, and cheetah, leopard, anything. It's big five.
Yeah.
Or rhino. And we get there, and he climbs out and he starts hugging the trees and the rocks. But he's really in the present moment. I'm just sitting and observing him.
Yeah.
And how emerged he is in that moment. And I admire it. And all of a sudden, he starts getting undressed, and he dresses his whole Indian suit on, like his native suit on. And I'm like, this is dope. Like, this is dope. I love this. And he's like, you next. And I'm like a little boy now. I'm like, yeah. I get undressed in my jocks there. He dresses me like a full native attire. And we walk over this rock. And we called it Simba's Rock. Because if you stand there, I said, like, you can see 40% of the reserve and stuff. So we're standing on top of there. And he starts chanting with a wing, like an owl wing that he's got. And he's got sage, and he's like standing there. And he's like just chanting this, and I'm standing there and just like embracing this moment. And then reality hits my head. Hey, you're in Africa on a reserve. There's tourists,
big tourists,
and everything like.
And you guys are dressed up as Native Americans,
standing there like
in the middle of Africa.
And I'm just, and it's just too overwhelming for me at that moment. And
cultural appropriation.
Well, dude, if it's given to you from the
exactly.
Exactly. And, he too comes over and he puts his head against mine and he says to me, "You are now Whitefeather. You're my brother Apache." And he goes, and he goes on chanting, and I'm like, this is so beautiful.
This is so cool.
Over the radio, Divan come in, and I'm like, oh boy. Somebody see an answer. They say, listen, it is in this section of the reserve, there's poachers. We're on foot. We need you to come this side. They are going into the western. They look like they want to break out, but we're still on foot with them in the reserve. They're heading to the fence. We need you to cut them off. That, you know, everything
Please
is like
tell
a
me
shattering...
you arrest poachers dressed up as a Native American. Please.
As this shattering reality emerges, I tell E2, listen, we got to bounce. There's problems. So he's like, okay. We all grab gear. We just throw it in a jeep. I had a 2-seater jeep.
Yep.
And we're racing now. I have to offload him and then get Vusi with the LM5.
Yep.
Pick him up at base and then rush over to the western boundary. So I'm driving and he's cool. He says, if you go, just go to Manzi, she'll look after you. All good. And as we're driving, we see a tourist car coming in front of us. And I'm like racing. And I pull off into the right of way for gas.
Yeah.
And I wait patiently. And as we're sitting there, the tourists drive past us sitting, there's 2 Native Americans in front of a Jeep. And I'm
probably wondering what?
You just see like heads turn. And I get to the base, tell him to go. And Vusi runs there. But Vusi's got this like look on his face, and he's like, something's not right. Jumps on the back of his gun, and we race off. Now I'm racing, going those 2-track roads. You have to cross a bridge, and at this moment, I think all these people we just drove past were actually heading in that direction. They might have their drink stop on that bridge, so just slow down. I'm going now 100, 120, like on these 2-track roads. It was V6 Jeep. It was fun.
Is it a Rubicon?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
And as I get to that, it was the tar.
Oh,
Mahindra tars.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
So as I get around this corner, all these people are standing on this bridge.
Yeah.
And I hit the brakes and I'm like sliding with the guy at the back here holding on because he doesn't want to sit next to me. I jump out, still dressed in my whole attire, and I walk, and all the guests are like, "Why are you dressed like Indian?" I'm like, "I'll talk to you now. Thank you very much." I walk onto the ranger. I'm like, "Poachers, can you move poachers? Can you just get the guests? He's like, okay, everybody come, let's get back on the vehicle, there's an emergency.
Yeah.
And he's discreet about it, and everybody walks through the thing, and I get back in the Jeep, and I'm smiling, and I'm poof, off. As I'm driving, and I'm hitting now an open section, and I'm pushing this Jeep now, and I forget about the next bump.
Yeah.
In that mind, but now I can see the western boundary, and they're talking on the radio at that point, and everything is like, it's fast but slow motion away, listening. And they're like, Divan, we see you, come down this western boundary, you can see them, they're coming to the fence right
so
now.
you were coming as like a stopper or something?
Yeah,
or like
to go down the fence line. So straight, I had to go then left and go down the western fence line, and I would have intersected them.
Yeah.
And as I'm driving, because it's an open vlakte, you can see the low-fell grass.
Yeah.
I see the guys running towards the fence, and as I look back, I'm at like probably 120 now.
Yeah.
I hit this bump, and as I go over, there's water, and I hit this water. Poof! It was like a wall just came in front of me. For like 2 seconds, you couldn't see through the window, and poor Boosie at the back, he was covered in mud, like. And I'm putting the wipers on, and there's no water, and I'm trying to see, and it's just chaos. And all of a sudden, I slow down because it was straight. Luckily, it was straight. I get to the corner, I turn off left, and I go in. And I see the guys, and I see we're gonna miss them. And I'm going down that, and I'm just like, Boosie, hold on, going down there, and the guys are getting. They get to the fence, and they cut the fence like in front of us, like another 50 meters.
Yeah.
Through the fence. As we get there, they threw the fence into the bushes. I said, Boosie, gun, grab it. Unload it, and I shoot 5 meters into the ground. It's soft soil, so I just unloaded, the whole round.
Yeah.
And turn around. The other crew also arrived at that point.
Yeah.
And I just fired off these shots. And I turned around, standing with my Native American gear, and everybody's looking at me like, "What is going on here?" And I'm like, "I can explain, guys."
I can explain.
No, it was a funny ordeal. And Manzi was so cool about it. She had a good laugh about it.
Well, I
Thinking
mean,
like,
I mean,
But it kind of highlights also that
That's like
any
things can
any moment
yes,
things
like,
can happen. You know, it's like
well, that's the whole thing about, I know my last episode I mentioned about romanticized and how you come out of, a lot of people come out of training thinking this is how things are always going to be. So when I just want to touch base on that. So when I mentioned that this job mustn't be romanticized, I'm not saying that you must never be prepared. And this is a perfect example.
Yeah.
This is a perfect example.
Yeah. So that's a lesson learned.
Yeah, you train to be prepared. Always be ready, because this happens anytime.
That's it.
So that's a perfect example of when it always happens when you least expect it.
That's it.
So somewhere.
What was your nickname?
White Feather.
White Feather.
White Feather, yeah. So he came back later the next day, and he said he had a dream about me between lions.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And he said it was a beautiful moment, because we were sitting with the lions that morning. The next day, I showed him this beautiful. The lion was walking by the river, and we followed him off road, like, and went a bit like secluded with him, and I had this beautiful moment with this male lion. His name was Reduma, Voice of Thunder.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And
that's a cool name.
He said to me about this dream he had, and he said, your name is not White Feather anymore. It's now Soul Amongst the Lions.
Oh, that's cool.
And I said, I'm so honored. And I have a Bushman friend also, and the contact comes and goes. And I feel like with Native American people, indigenous people that are so connected to the earth, they disappear. They go back into where they know they find themselves again.
Yes.
Over and over and over again. So they all have this link where there's no ear communication. They're off social media, and all of a sudden like just pop up and like talk to you.
Yeah.
How's it going? Just want to let you know you're cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's beautiful for me, because it teaches me also that we're so dependent on our technology.
Yeah.
That we must. If you go into that silence, you find so much about yourself and your growth and who you are. So it's part of the journey as we go on. It's a beautiful chapter in my life. I'll always remember it. Yeah. So.
That's awesome, man. So I just want to move on now to what I really want to talk about, which is your current project. Tell me more about it. What's the name? What's the purpose? What are your goals, and what are your dreams? What's happening with it? I know you're going to be starting that journey fairly soon. So I'd love to hear more about it, and I'd love for people to learn about it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So this was the logo I designed comes from a real lion's paw.
Okay.
And the organization is called Wildlife Warriors Africa.
Okay.
With the old Africa of the K, not
Okay.
the C.
Okay.
And, sitting in the Kruger National Park on this pub where I was designing his logo one night with nothing again. Like, it was a different another story again. But living in this room with like a hole in the in the ceiling in the water, and you have to jump over the water to get to the shower, but the shower is just cold water. It's like real bush now, rugged.
Yeah.
And sitting here at night with this pub, and a cheetah chased a wildebeest through the pub, and there's a python where the kitchen is, and it's wrapped around there. It's like, and it's only held together with corrugated iron and reeds, but it's got the best Wi-Fi and the coolest vibe and best pizzas.
Yeah.
And I took that lion paw and I just played around. And to me, that's his legacy that carries on. If you go back to the 4 lions and you ask me what happened to them, is that they were killed for can hunting.
Yeah.
And those purposes, and also used for breeding.
Yeah.
So, but in that moment, realization kicked in where you'll never be able to free these lions.
Yeah.
And that was that, because I went through so much into the Kruger and trying to get them free, and almost getting there, and then things would just fall apart. Or it was weird how things worked out. If you look back now, why it didn't work out back then, it's because it wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And as you just carry on and you just dust yourself off again and you carry on, you realize how strong it becomes, because you build on your dream and your vision.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot to learn still. And that's the process that I understand looking back now, how to learn a lot more valuable lessons in life to get to where I am now, to let this fly. And so the logo is, no hum is his name, that lion. It means peace.
Okay.
And his legacy for me will carry on with his footprint all over Africa to try and help lions and conservation and communities and education across Africa, and want to link up with other organizations, help those organizations setting up community-based conservation concessions.
Yes.
And then that can be protected, and creating corridors with African parks, peace parks, whoever.
Yes.
It would be great if we can all pair up and we create these corridors through Africa that can benefit so much for humanity, and also for 50 years, 100 years going forward, where this could be a proclaimed heritage. Because as humans are expanding and the numbers are rising, we need to protect what we got now, because in the future we can then sustain from that. And if we keep that biodiversity in check, is a symbiosis where we also dependent on that biomes. And protecting the biomes also protects the people and humanity. And that's the key essence in the education of that whole organization, is then to let people become responsible and direct as part of the company, and grow from that, and learn and take that, and it carries on. And that paw print goes for the legacy to follow the tail of the lion. But in that, the lion is the keystone species to the ecosystem. If you take that little stone out, it's going to crumble. And also ensuring to protect the most iconic animal in the world. It will ripple effect to all the other animals that also are needed to be protected, and also the people that doing the job to be protected. And if we can get more warriors on board and people to invest into something good, we can make this really a beautiful place, and we can our heritage can enjoy it. The future generations, when we're gone, can enjoy it, and we've laid the foundation. So that's in a nutshell.
Well, I mean, you bring up, for me personally, you bring up something important, because I never plan on having kids. I love kids. You can give them to me, and I'll look after them for you, but I'll give them back, because I don't want kids. But my friends who do have kids, they are incredibly important to me. Because they belong to my friends, and I want them to be able, and this is why I'm so passionate about the job, is because I want them to be able to experience in 10, 15, 20, 30 years time, when they're older, going to places like the Kruger and being able to enjoy, a holiday in the Kruger, or in the middle of the Tankwa, or wherever, and be able to enjoy our wildlife conservation, our wildlife. So that our efforts continue.
We can only do this in unity,
Yeah.
United we stand, divided we fall. So that's the whole principle.
So then, yeah, you're going to be starting your journey soon. I know, quite soon. So what's the first stop for you? Are you going? I know you said you're going to be traveling.
Yeah.
So what's the plan?
So it's going through 8 African countries, and it will end up in Kenya in the Kora Reserve of George Adamson, the famous George Adamson that got killed by poachers.
Yep.
He was the first person that successfully hand-reared lions and rehabilitated them back into the wild, being habituated to people.
Okay.
I think it's a remarkable thing that goes also, against very natural people, scientific communities that don't support that action. And I can understand also their reasoning for that. And also then the other side, there's always 3 sides of a story.
Yeah.
But to me, growing up and following George Adamson, because as a kid I used to love his books and reading it and his pictures, and I met his niece.
Okay.
Also, it was a weird interaction as you go on the journey. You meet, and I feel solely what you think and what you go on your purpose. You meet the right people, and it connects the dots. And the weirdest thing has happened when you just do this.
Yes.
And that's the cool part of it.
Yeah.
It's always a mystery, but it's such a blessing in a way.
Yes.
So it will end up in Kora Reserve, going to see what's happening, what is left over of the famous George camp.
Yep.
It will end there, but also then a bigger picture. Back then there was so many animals poached and killed. Is that reserve still existing? I don't know what's happening there.
Yeah.
So going then from there down, Ethiopia, there's the black lions in the forest there. I'd love to go and do some research there and find out what's happening. They're almost extinct.
Yep.
There must be good organizations out there doing work. Maybe they need help. Maybe there can be somehow help to collar a lion, follow a lion, put on camera traps, help with communities in the area, maybe put a borehole in for communities and educate people in on lions and find out what's the community's needs. I don't want to bring in my needs, but I think it's going to be good for the community. I want to just find out who they are and what is their needs, what is their troubles, what is the solutions.
Sorry to interrupt that. I don't know if you saw recently now, like in Namibia, there was that lion that was killed by the community. I mean, it just shows you, highlights again the need and the
I worked in Namibia, and I was a project coordinator for predators in that area, and I used to go to the communities where the cows the lions chowed a cow right in front of his doorstep, and everybody's outraged, saying they have pigs, pangas, old rifles ready, and they're tracking this lion. They want to shoot it now, and you have to be diplomatic and going in there and calm it down, and they'll be like, "You're the lion people, we don't like you," and everybody's like, it's very hard-headed. Because that's the only livelihood of people are dependent on, and if something like that dies, it's a major loss. And I can understand if there's an influx of nomadic lions expanding into human territories and eating cows, it's a conflict going on. So that'll be also part of the journey going in Namibia, and also part in Zambia and Tanzania. Just finding out what's happening. I just want to get a scope of a recce of understanding what's happening, and then link up with good organizations and have a chat and document everything and write down and do a blog and get information out there. And as we're there, we can establish these partnerships. And I've already got one in Malawi where this ranger, he was also anti-poaching, and then he went to the government and he did all his paperwork, and he's got 20,000 hectares of reserve now on his name. And he's got the logo, everything in place, but he's got nothing there. And I hooked up with this guy randomly. I just saw him as he sent me a friend request on Facebook. Started seeing what he was doing. I started chatting to him. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm from here. I was at the Tosa doing TikTok training."
Well,
excuse me. I don't.
Yeah, let's not
mention names. Some anti-poaching training. Bleep that one out.
Bleep that one.
Somebody say,
And so just go see and have a chat to him.
Was that easy? You can edit this out.
Yeah.
No.
His name.
Yeah.
Oh, you want the name?
No. It doesn't have to. Yeah.
Oh.
I just wanted to know if
okay. No, I mean, if everybody wants to help, I mean, it's there to help. I mean, I don't know if I totally lost my trail of thought now.
Sorry, that was
were you wanting to know if the guy's name was?
Yeah, I just wanted to know.
Yes.
If the guy,
yes.
Okay.
But the guy that you've hooked up with.
Yeah. So.
So you know him.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've followed him for a few years and whatever, and I
Okay.
just saw recently
Oh, yeah,
that he
yeah.
mentioned
Okay.
you know,
Yes,
the,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah, so we'll just
Okay,
bleep
cool.
out his
We'll
name.
bleep out that.
We'll
Okay.
bleep, I'll bleep out his name.
Yeah.
Okay, let
But,
me read first that there's already a project that we are working on where somebody, or not working on, we want to go and see. Because this person was part of an anti-poaching unit, and we obtained 20,000 hectares of land to turn into conservation. You know, it's in a conservation title, which is great. It's like people learning and seeing the valuable, and they're going and stepping into their zone, and they're trying to do good. So want to go and see if it's legit. You know, you never know. So you go and see, and you speak to someone. If you feel it's right, then do it. And we can do so much more. If you can set up another place where you can bring in lions and rhinos and elephants and all the species that needs to be there.
Yes.
And
yeah. Well, that's all. I understand that you got some decent funding for it.
He's doing he's being an elephant now.
We're still recording.
We're still recording.
Love you, brother.
Love you long time.
So I understand that you got some good funding for it. So I understand that you're just going to be doing a you mentioned the word recce, so you're just going to be doing a recce around. And if it works this time, then you're going to be doing a second.
Yeah. So also with this recce, I would, if there's no time frame. So if I see there needs to be a cattle kraal here, I'll build a cattle kraal. Awesome. To keep the cows inside, to keep some peace. Okay. Or put up some reflector lights and deter the lions away. There's some companies I've also partnership, or they're still in that process, and it will be great if it can go forward where they will sponsor collars and
that's awesome.
gear for helping then we'll take a nomadic lion and dart him, put a collar on him, and we can then see his movements. And if he comes close to the community, we can notify the community and say, listen, you get your cows in, there's a lion in your vicinity, he's going to probably be there, he's heading in our direction, he's going to be there in 3-4 hours. So that can also help then people. But then
and it can show that people in your line of work aren't just the lion people, aren't just bad people. You're actually trying to help, and this is how you educate communities.
And then for that also to build schools. Like if when I traveled in certain parts of Africa in my life, I've learned that it's very run down, and people just need a little bit of help. And if you can go and help and build a school or a water supply, just to show that we're here to help. Yes. We want to educate.
And that's so important, is because I think a lot of times there's people go in and they have a look and they assess and for themselves, and they go like, these people just need electricity. They haven't asked for electricity.
Yeah.
And so they go and they build, they put in electricity, and then they leave, and then they've left them with a whole new set of problems. But as you say, by going there, identifying what do they need, and assisting with that and whatever it is, that actually that's something that
going to anti-poaching now. Just on that, you're like, cool. You guys are the 6-man unit. What do you need? Okay, we need new boots and we need new pants. Okay, cool. Here's night vision goggles.
20,000 rand drone. Okay, thank you.
Here's a drone. Here's a drone.
Standing there collecting dust.
Still need the boots.
No Wi-Fi.
No Wi-Fi.
Where's the boots?
Yeah, still need those boots. Still need those boots. So, but I mean, that's nice that you're going around and
exactly. That's also that part.
That's awesome.
You can go and say, listen,
what do you need, or how to?
So on that note, is there any way that future listeners, the average Joe who sits behind a desk and is compelled, always sees things online and wants to help out, but doesn't quite have the time to help out? Is there a way that someone like that, or everyone can help you out? Is there
just send an email, resignation, message me and you're coming. I'll be like, shops.
Nice, okay.
Well, that's what I did. That's what I did. I 15 years in the motor industry. COVID hit, and I still worked. I grinded hard during COVID, and then one day I was just like, no,
balls to the walls.
I'm done,
and just go on the journey.
It was awesome. Best thing I've ever done.
Absolutely,
makes you feel alive.
Exactly.
That's true. I mean, you get back from spending however long you spend there, and that's when you, like you said, you were talking about going back to the city and or going back to wherever you're from or whatever, and you kind of listen to people talking about their problems, their daily problems, but how often a lot of those things haven't changed. And I'm not saying in everybody's case, but a lot of times it's like kind of trivial. It can be trivial but it's these and you've just got back from the bush or whatever it is, and you're just going, wow, like really, like you worried about that Woolworths didn't stock your favorite,
it.
and
you
it's,
get into that rut.
it's so
bubble.
easy to.
So you do you have a GoFundMe or anything? Is there anything where people can help?
So people can visit the website. You can just type in www.africa.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Africa with a K here.
So it's Wildlife Warriors Africa, but you just type in www.africa with a K. .org, and then you can get to the website and you can follow it from there, from Instagram, Facebook.
Cool. I'll put that in the description.
And then we've got a email messaging. Also, you can link up and subscribe on the channels.
Cool.
On the website, and then you can get a newsletter of the reports of where we are. So we're going to send that out also every month.
That's incredible.
Nice.
And so people can stay on top of the journey and know what we're doing and how we can spread the awareness. And that's the other thing that people can start doing is, if you want to get interested, is start spreading the awareness, start reading about what's happening on the plight of lions. Lions have lost 95% of their original territory in Africa. So that's a huge loss in the last 20, 30 years. And as we're going forward, we need to now stand up and act together and, protect what is needed.
Yes.
So that's basically in a nutshell.
Awesome. So I've on my first episode, I did this, and I think I want to do this going forward. If there was anything besides telling them to resign and contact you, is there anything that you would say to anyone, whether they're young or old, who has this passion, who feels like they're able to make a difference? What would you say to them?
No matter what you do, there will be a difference. So
I like that.
if you, it doesn't matter how big you are, or age doesn't matter. There's kids that are changing the world. They're 8 years old. They're making an impact. They're just doing something. You never know what action you lead, what impact that's going to create in that ripple. And that's going to light up so much more in your life and everybody's lives. So you just got to be courageous, and the courageous get rewarded.
That's awesome.
I mean, that saying of, I think, what was it, that you should never do nothing because you can only do a little.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So whatever you do is going to have a ripple effect. So do it positive and build on that and create that ripple.
I like that. Awesome.
Cool. And there's the illumination. There's the illumination from out of the darkness.
Oh, the Trinity of Eights. Enlightening the world.
Enlightening the world.
That's like awesome. Your podcast.
And doing
It's awesome. So, Divan, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
It's been awesome. And just on a personal note, it's been awesome working with you. You're definitely headed in an amazing direction. I think you're capable of greatness, and I'm looking forward to seeing it manifest.
Thank you for this time and this opportunity and what you're doing also, and what you two are doing. I think that our paths have crossed for a reason, and it will stay crossed for many years to go, and it will intertwine and become stronger because we're all on the same mission. So I'm very honored for you to say. I also say I feel and respect the same as what you're saying. I'm humbled by this, and what you're doing is amazing, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be huge. And
thank you.
Just keep on pushing. And I got your back. I'm supporting you.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank
you.
We got your 6.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. See you up on Billy. I'll check you gents. In the bush.
Awesome.
Yeah. Definitely.
Just depends on what your costume looks like.
I hope we see you first.
Thanks for joining me on today's episode. If you'd like to reach out, you can find me on Instagram at Rangers for Rhinos, or send me an email at jacques.energy@gmail.com. For those of you listening on YouTube, leave a comment below and I'll get back to you when I can. Appreciate your support and see you in the next episode.